Hello. So, Dominic Cummings, the government keeps telling us to move on. Move on, they keep saying. And that happened, what, a couple of days after the actual story broke last weekend. In any case, I don't think the public is in any mood to listen to this government when it comes to somebody like Dominic Cummings, who flouted the rules, let's say. Not everybody gets to do that sort of thing. And he believes himself to be genetically superior. And I say, genetically superior, my arse. There's nothing genetically superior about Dominic Cummings. Doesn't he look like Gollum out of Lord of the Rings? How is he genetically superior? Dominic Cummings also believes in the pseudoscience of eugenics. I'll come on to talk about that a little later on, but I think it's important to say this, that the people, or rather the biggest advocates for eugenics, are the bourgeoisie. I'm not talking about middle class people. I'm talking about people who are old money, okay? They're landed, they have titles. In some cases, maybe they're kind of newish money. So the money has been in the family for, say, maybe 3 or 4 generations. You find very few nouveau riches talking about eugenics. Maybe some do, but I haven't encountered them. And I certainly haven't encountered any working class people talking in favorable terms about eugenics. So what is eugenics? Well, eugenics has been around since, or at least the idea itself has been around since ancient Greece. And it was picked up in the 19th century by Charles Darwin's cousin, Francis Galton, who borrowed, or rather filleted, his cousin's theories of evolution and in particular, natural selection, and created something that became known as social Darwinism or scientific racism. Indeed, our concept of race actually comes from that period of time when Galton invented these imagined notions of race. Because before that, race referred to people from other countries. So the French were a race, the Russians were a race, the Prussians were a race, the Dutch were a race, and so on. And they needed this kind of idea of social Darwinism to justify racism, to justify the reason why certain groups of people were best suited for backbreaking physical labor. No prizes for guessing which groups of people those were. Anyway, Dominic Cummings. His wife, Mary Wakefield, who's the commissioning editor of The Spectator, or The Dictator, as I like to call it, because it's read by all good wannabe dictators, is the daughter of somebody called Humphrey Wakefield, or to give him his full name, Sir Edward Humphrey Tyrrell Wakefield, the second Baronet of Kendal. He's a baronet. So he's not a high-ranking aristocrat. He's fairly low down. He's just above a knight, in fact. But they call them Sir, as they do with knights. I'm not going to get into the explanation behind the baronet and where the whole idea of that comes from. But safe to say that it's actually, I think Pierre Bourdieu talks about it in Distinctions, where titles are considered more important than other titles because of their relative rarity. Anyway, back to Mary Wakefield, who's married to Dominic Cummings. If you look at a picture of Humphrey Wakefield, who's an expert in antiques and architecture, apparently, he looks he's got the same shaped head and even the same eyebrows as Dominic Cummings, which makes me think, well, does Mary Wakefield have the Electra complex? Now, the Electra complex is the female counterpart of the Oedipus complex. Now, the Oedipus complex is a sexual condition that was coined, or at least theorized or hypothesized by Sigmund Freud, which contends that boys will enter into a psychosexual competition with their fathers to compete for the mother's attention. So the Electra complex is the female counterpart. That kind of goes some way of explaining why eugenics isn't such a great idea, really, because, these people, many of them, marry each other. They marry cousins or marrying cousins. And again, eugenics falls flat on its face when you look at the royal family. None of them, or very few of them at least, actually fulfill the criteria of being genetically superior. And that's where I'm going to leave it. Thank you for listening.